by the way.
Okay.
They just tell me how to. Yeah, that's the way it is.
Yeah. Customers, who needs customers? It's all conceptual. Looks like you did some homework. Put me to shame.
Fred, we're ready anytime you are.
Okay. Well, we lost Mark. As soon as Mark gets back.
Milton, can you hear us?
Ron? Howdy. How you doing?
Good, yourself?
Good. Go. We're trying.
Looks like your storage chart's showing up.
Yes, I can hear you.
It is.
Okay, I can hear you too. You sound pretty good.
Yep. Thanks. Much better.
Is that the mouth that on it?
I printed out the last two.
You said that email, is this the mouth?
Close, okay. All right, let's call the meeting to order. Call, I guess, is what we do.
Yep.
Fred Arn,
Yeah.
Doug Hunter,
Here.
Mark Linscott.
Here.
Ron Nelson,
Here.
Jeanette, and I don't, probably get it all the time. That's Joe Wilson.
Yep. I'm always fast. Oh, yeah, right.
Okay, the minutes. Everyone get an opportunity to pledge allegiance. Says review and approve minutes, announcements, but you know what? You're right. We're gonna do that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Feels good here. I guess now we get to approve the minutes. Everybody get an opportunity.
I'll make a motion. True.
Okay,
Ronald seconded.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Sorry, I missed. Yes, no. Non-technical.
I have no announcement. The internet's not working. Probably makes it a week. And I remember that you guys were going to planning to draw a 10-acre description for us, or at least help us through that. Did that happen this week? No?
Is the map on the screen?
No. You guys, you offered to, we were kind of stumbling on that. The difference between the 5-acre residential and the 10-acre residential, and it takes us so long to do that. You offered county to give us at least a place to start. Did that happen?
I wrote little notes on mine that say refer to the map instead. I don't know why that, I wrote that, but
Well, I think that's kind of what we want to do, but we were gonna do some sort of, I think probably the problem, at least as I remember it, was that we couldn't figure out what the difference between a why 5 acre residential and then 10 acre residential. I mean, the
Well, I-
description that we have on the 10 acre is the same as on the 5 acre residential.
well, it talks about the first band of low density development following Sagle neighborhood. And then the next row of 10 is supposed to be the second band. That's why we have to refer to the map. Because the map would show us where Sagle neighborhood was, so that we could figure out where R5 would be. And the next band, whatever that means. I mean, I don't know how we,
Well, I think that's how we were gonna do it, but we were gonna write up something for the 10 acre.
well, it would be helpful if we had a map that showed us Sagle neighborhood. And I don't know if we have one.
I have the last 2 maps that Amanda did. I printed out. And I think probably the primary difference is the dark blue area here. Does anybody have copies of that?
I mean, this one I had for quite a while.
I think that this is the one that
Yeah,
that I think was the last one I got.
They're different. Oh, wow, they are different. Do you know what date you got that, man?
No, I don't.
So what's the most recent?
You've got the same.
yeah, this is the one that.
Doug,
And it's,
print out.
that's that one, right? Sort of, except it has
that's-
green instead of
That's the one
white.
that Mark has.
I think mine's a little different. Huh?
Yeah, this,
So the map that's on the screen is the map that Amanda was working with Jade on. And Jade sent that up earlier this week. And you're just gonna have to be patient. I didn't send it out, so I will get better at that in the future. In fact, I'll send everything out either tonight or first thing in the morning from tonight. But this is the map that Jade and Amanda were working on, and they maneuvered the green around a little bit here, I think. And then they were supposed to match the R5 and the R10 with the 5 and the 10.
The dark blue being the 10s.
This here being the 10s, this purplish, whatever color it is for you. Yeah.
Because I've used designations, because I've got one map here. It's very similar, but it shows that really dark blue as being R5. I have 2 maps.
The light blue is R5.
Yeah.
The dark blue is R10.
Right, I've got that map, but I also have another map here
That may be obsolete.
that's showing, yeah. But those were the 2 that came up on my computer when I don't have a date on it. Okay.
So this color, is this considered light blue?
yeah,
So that's that. It looks like white.
yeah, it's light blue, that's the
Okay.
rural 5.
No, so that's R5s. It's not. Okay. Fives. Okay.
And this new map shows, yeah, it shows within a quarter, the suburban zoning within a quarter mile of the Sagle sewer boundary.
Hey, Don, how are you? Pretty good. Looks good to me. What are we signing?
Well, do we want to have some sort of verbal description on the 10 acre, or we want to leave it the way it is, or? I mean, I do remember we were gonna refer to the map, but I also think we were gonna refer to the map on the 5 acre as well. That better defines the 2 areas. But do we want to have something written on the 10 acre?
That's why I'm.
Anybody?
Who would like to insert? I mean,
Well, I don't know. I just remember that last time we talked about, we were
So.
just bouncing.
this,
It's some sort of verbiage for the 10 acre.
You guys.
And help it.
So this, all this stuff here is,
Yeah,
currently,
this is the most recent line.
yeah.
going up in the top, and they've got them 5s here.
We're all 10 acres. The second one is-
Yeah. Which those are all
When I
5s.
look at this on my
right?
screen,
These are all
it
5.
doesn't differentiate between 5 and 10.
This is all that,
It just says land use code 7, Roman
Nice.
numeral 5 to 10.
well, yeah, this is all Ike's here, and then this wasn't Ike's.
Because
this
of
was
zoning
Another
and
guy,
land.
this is that computer's all flooded in 20 here.
Yeah,
Years ago.
this computer is
But-
working apparently. Unlike last week. I mean, last week it worked, it just wouldn't do what I told it to do.
So.
And this week it's doing, I just went to land use. Zoning land use, and then I went to land use.
The map is.
Well, it might not have been corrected, you know. It might be the old town,
Well, that's.
and so it sounds like it's up to us to designate where to where, but we don't know what rural.
Well, we're missing.
That's probably the best map.
Here.
Yeah, I know, that's this now.
All
It's
this-
just that these are orange,
This is
and
all
this has
blue,
extra
dark
little
blue,
hooks
and
on it.
then there's
But
blue,
this is,
blue, and blue.
these are orange instead of
That's
green on
all
there, it's the same
Pretty,
exact.
I mean, that's that slope straight up the Lake Shore Drive.
But that,
I don't think. Yours probably isn't.
That's
Well,
that,
that should be.
but where
One
is
little
Sagle
section of
neighborhood?
agriculture that we were, and focused on last.
That was,
Isn't that green? So it's on the map.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
the Sagle neighborhood
So they, now they
says
put
it's
that
a
in
quarter mile
the 20s.
of within from South Lake to it.
This is the close
That's
up.
it? That's the whole thing?
I think.
Is that all of Sagle neighborhood, just this, these little yellow parts?
No, that's commercial.
Feel free if you have any questions. Well, chime in.
So did you guys find Sagle neighborhood? Is that the yellow?
I think you should, I don't even think you should be looking at those maps, really.
It's the same as that,
That one is, oh, did you turn it off?
except this part right here. It's just green instead of orange. And this part here up there has some extra stuff on it, but otherwise it's exactly the same.
Because I don't see any red on that one. This has got a bunch of red on
That's
it.
resort. That, yeah, that
And
map
this-
just doesn't have resort on
And
it.
no, this isn't the same. This is the old suburban zoning here. The new
Well,
stuff stretches out over.
yeah, it has a little bit of
Thing here, you
extra.
guys.
It has this part
Did you see
added
that up
on,
there?
It's things.
the yellow area.
Yeah, that one and that one are. the same.
Yes.
But it's pretty close to this, basically. The question I have is, where is Sagle neighborhood? Is that the yellow? part?
Yes, yeah. That's the deal.
So then the next band out from there, how far? That's what we said, our 5s were gonna be the next band out.
That's a little light.
So this green is basically the Sagle neighborhood, or what do you call it here? Community? I guess, do
Sagle
you call
neighborhood.
it community?
Sagle neighborhood.
Well, up here it's called community. But anyways, so then you got this stretch of 5s here, and then going up to 3 Mountain to go to the 20s. And then this is stretch of 5 to here, and then as you're going up Gold Hill, it goes to 10s. And then this is all Forest Service. So this is the next wave right here,
The blue.
the
Well,
light blue.
According to our plan, it says the next band out is R5, and the next one after that is R10.
Right,
Which
so,
is the dark.
so community, R5 and R10.
So the blue is all R2, is the
Dark.
only,
The light blue is R5.
I mean, the dark blue,
This is 10.
that's it?
Well, it goes all the way out to the lake.
Yeah, this is the lake here.
Well, what about on the other side?
This,
The other side of that, of the orange?
this over here,
I mean,
Further
over here.
southwest. Yeah, down in that.
Yeah, well, that's what I was just talking to Mark about. 'Cause I got internet on my computer right there through my phone, and I've got the old map brought up, and we're missing quite a bit of 10s around here, because it went 5s, 10s, then 20s. And they kind of covered a lot of it with they covered all the 10s and 5s.
Well,
So I don't know if that's what you guys want, or,
well, is there a differentiation between 5s and 10s?
10, yeah, 1 house per 10 acres and 1 house per 5 acres.
No, I
and
know what we said about what gets to go on 5s and 10s. But is there a designation out there that we can say, because the wording is the first band away from Sagle neighborhood is 5s, the second band is 10s. Well, where is the second band?
Yeah, well, it's not up there right now.
So you're suggesting we just leave it the way it is right now?
No, I would like to see some dark blue on that west side.
Yeah,
I think we've talked about that, and I probably just got missed. You can see it right here.
We talked about it.
where did you put under the layers under what? I
Under-
think I
under
have
zoning.
some of this.
Oh, your computer's up.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so. Well, you unclick the land use.
Unclick it.
Yeah. Okay, so see this blue here?
Yeah.
Blue, 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 blue.
Oh, so we already do have some. color.
Well, this is the current comp plan, or this is the current zoning stuff. That is what is proposed, and I feel like we're missing some 10s up there.
Well, and it's important because we're saying at the end of these to refer to the maps. You know, with the specifics. So if we don't have a map with specifics, on it, it's kind of difficult for us to find those ones.
Well, I think that's what we're supposed to be doing.
Well, and I just thought I remember Amanda saying at one point, we hadn't really finalized
Sure.
everything
Yeah.
over on that side, and that might be why.
You bet, yeah. So I guess what we could do right now,
Well, let's discuss the east side. Are we happy with that?
I think it's pretty much like what we talked about.
yeah. And do our paragraphs support that? I guess that's what we need to figure out, finalize today. Is our R5 and R10 paragraphs support that map right there?
That's correct. And then the next one is we kind of need to, you know, a little bit on agriculture because
I think we abandoned that.
well, we did, but we put it in with the timber. And I in reading our full thing, we refer to the agriculture several times in a very specific way. So I think we kind of might need to, even though we put it together, we might need to at least have a cursory definition of what we consider agriculture. Maybe I'm reading a different one than everyone else. But there was quite a few references.
To agriculture?
Yeah.
I noticed that too, that we worked on 2 years ago or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Last year.
Put a lot of time and energy into that, and then now we're gonna abandon agriculture, so. And
Yeah,
it's,
but forestry is agriculture too.
pardon me?
Forestry is agriculture.
Yeah, no, I agree, we should lump them together, it shouldn't be a separate one, but we need to give the agricultural a little more credence than just saying that it's part of the.
Okay, so is that our paragraph?
It is.
So let's read through that, just make sure.
At one point, we talked about designating sections to do some of this. Is that still in anybody's mind? Does that even work?
Now, do we go at the end of that? Do we go refer to zoning map or whatever?
Yeah,
we go?
that's what we discussed last week. Was when we got to the question marks, dot, 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 we referred to the C map. And
Is that is that something you guys look at, Milton, at the end of that paragraph when you have somebody come to the table? I mean, Don?
What do you mean?
Is which? The end of which paragraph?
Just Sagle Residential 5. We're asking if at the end of the paragraph or the end of the section it says refer to map, or does that?
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely.
so on the other side of the highway there, the one that we don't have all done 5 and 10 acres, how close are we on the 5 acres? Guys feel is what we want to see.
Sagle Row Residential 5 is the first stand of low density on Sagle neighborhood.
Yeah.
Hey, there you go. I like that.
So,
Yeah, map.
Works for me, because that's what, I think that's what we had in mind doing last week.
so the designation, so if somebody came in and said, flipped this backwards, said, well, I want to put, wait a minute, let me look at this. If you talked about 5. So for whatever reason, if somebody came in and said, I want 10 acres only instead, and the only thing is that relies on is between Sagle community or Sagle neighborhood and the 10. So it's just the map. So that means that the 10 says it's beyond the 5. And it's purely the map. So that's the more critical when somebody came in out toward the east end of the peninsula and said, I want to have 5 acres zoning. The reason that it couldn't go is because the map says it can't. Right. Right.
Well, and we spent hours trying to define some
Distinction.
right, and
Stuff.
and I think probably, I don't know, maybe we didn't, I felt that we all generally agreed that the map was probably the best way to delineate that.
Yeah, I mean, to pictorially delineate it, but as a reasoning behind it. Right, just to say, yep, the map says it's gotta be that, so it's gotta be that. That seems weak. It seems like it's not gonna stand up. If somebody gets denied and they take it to court, the judge and the jury says, whoa, just the map? Right. Why, what's behind the map, right?
What great evil nexus
Right,
can only be
Why?
remedied by
Just
taking
the
away
map
that
says so.
properties, changing it.
Yeah.
From 10s to 5s to 10s.
So Don, I think that's a good point, but I'm hoping that those are things those are deficiencies, if you will, that the planning commission will address as they go through and try to tighten this up. So the hope is that we're gonna come up with some good recommendations and some solid ideas from the communities that represent what they want, and then I've got some folks, coming on board here in the next month that will help to really tighten this up and solidify this language. So,
So,
And that's consistent with what we discussed last week, was if there was an issue where someone questioned or had a reason, then it would be the planning.
all right, so it's just recognizing that staff and the commission are going to try to put some edges in.
And out there on the peninsula, is, I think, could cause you some heartburn.
Well, there and the southwestern part too. I think that because it's such a
Right,
big
Lake,
lot
yeah.
down there. There's an awful lot of fives and less down there. People can say, well, wait a minute, what's the distinction between this land and that land? That says it's going to be 10. Right.
So I have a question. We put a lot of work into this 5 and 10, and it's kind of the bread and butter of this whole document. And are we just going to rely on the map to do that and think that planning and zoning is going to say, yeah, that's a good deal without any more than what we're putting into this? I just struggle with that they are going to think that's okay. They're going to have their own ideas. And I don't know that's going to agree with our ideas, that we've been hammering this together for all these months without coming up with something a little more concrete than the map.
Well, that was part of why I wanted to have a little more descriptive verbiage in the 10 acre, was so that it was so that there was a distinction, a verbal distinction that goes with the map.
You guys know where we're headed, don't you?
As a country, or
No, well,
philosophically,
That's a loaded
we're headed right back to,
yeah.
aren't we, Milt? Is that what you just said?
Yeah, square one, right? We're going in this loop. So, I mean, I get the concern, and I don't know how to temper that for you, because this is a process, and it's gonna go through still more review. But what we're trying to create is a solid presentation of what the community sees, how it's going to grow and develop. And so, the fact that we put in here that it's supposed to be a buffer between rural residential 10 and Sagle neighborhood. And then maybe we can add language that talks about, how these can change. And that's the one thing we haven't addressed, but that I think we can address with the P&Z Commission, and that is, what allows these to change. And what you're saying is you don't want them to change, you want them to stay the color of the map. And we need to find the language that solidifies that. So it's going to be adjacency, it's going to be, it's going to be some of the more specifics, deep into the analysis of the properties to make it so they can't easily change. But some of it is going to be this as well, creating a buffer between these two districts, and then adjacency, making sure that things are adjacent before they could even be considered to change. Because as an area starts to look like or starts to develop towards the Sagle neighborhood, maybe there's a time for that to change. But again, all that can be added in.
But I just think what Ron's saying is still correct. It needs something more, and it has to wait till. So I was thinking, you guys have spent hours talking about this, and rightfully so. It's the big issue. So maybe, and I think most of that is back in the minutes or recordings of the previous meetings. So maybe we'll just have to rely on that. say, okay, this, you guys talked about road density, you talked about slopes, and that's important, because the further out on the peninsula you get, it's getting mountainous, and it's getting kind of crazy to get a road system off of Sagle Road and Bottle Bay Road that's gonna feed it and connect with the properties and all that kind of stuff. Let alone the recreation areas around Bottle Bay and Garfield. So, and that's been the quest all along, is to come up with hard enough criteria that it's gonna be plain that, no, this is gonna be 10. This is gonna be-
I think the only way we could make this more concrete is to go through each thing and go, that's 5, that's 10. We can't do anything more concrete than that.
Yeah,
Because
but-
even going back to slow doesn't help.
We're gonna need
That
another
doesn't help
2
at
years
all.
to do that.
Well.
Well, we can't go through the plan and say that Joe Smith's property is 10 and Alex Bass is 5. We can't put that in our plan. It's gotta be,
Right,
Well, the other part,
but that's
The
the
whole
only,
issue
really
of
the only way
continuity.
to make it more concrete is to specify which. what
Site
we talked-
specific.
yeah,
We did talk about that, maybe saying certain sections were R5 and certain sections were R2, but we dropped that. I mean, that would, I don't know how many sections there are
Yeah,
in Sagle,
it's a-
but that would be pretty.
it's still a strenuous exercise, whichever way, but still, even approaching that. Either you approach it from, well, let's look out there and see what's there. And you drive Sagle Road or Garfield Bay Road or whatever, and you see how the terrain is, you see what's there. And that starts to get you thinking. And then maybe from that, you come up with criteria, which is pretty much what happened in the past year with this group. Is thinking those things through. So it might be there already. In the notes, past lots that we can look at collectively.
So what if we, we've got our map, and what if we just say some of the reasoning behind our map is because of slopes in those areas. And just the general characteristics of the ground itself without designated Jim and Joe and Sam and everybody else. I mean, we still have to kind of generalize somewhat, but in it a little bit more than just the map, I guess.
How about if we go ahead and do it this way? We know that it's generalized, but include a note from the committee that says because of the complexity of the land and slope and ability to access and a multitude of reasons, we decided that the best way to do it was this way, but we understand this is not poured in concrete, and that will ultimately be the decision of the planning department, hopefully based on our wishes and what we've done, or something to that effect.
I think that would just encourage people who come in and want to divide stuff up, go, look, it's right here in the plan, it says we can do this.
Well, that's where it's gonna be. You guys are gonna make your presentation to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Then it's up to us to deal with it. Either just plain accept it the way it is, or supplement it. This is what I think this is the way it's hitting, is to come up with, I mean, again, looking back on this committee's notes. Well, look here, they looked at road density. Okay, could we consider that? Look at limited services, all right. That's much more prevalent. The limitation is more prevalent out there in the mountainous area than it is right out here, half a mile to the east or south or whatever. So those kind of things, and we can wrap that language around it. And it's still going to be based on what the map is today, and maybe some variation. But I think I like the areas that are covered by the map as far as the distinction between the neighborhood and the 5 and the 10.
I think this map that we have that matches up with there. I mean, I've had this map for almost 2 months now. This is what we've been working on.
But that doesn't show any 10s out to the west.
Not out to the west, correct?
And is that what the committee's aiming at?
What's that?
Is that what the committee's aiming at? Is no 10s out to the west? Or
I mean,
No.
my idea is.
we want to test up.
My idea is you know, zoned, I guess, zoned to the usage for some of the areas that we're already seeing out there.
I feel pretty comfortable with the way we did it on the lakeside. It's the other side that.
Yeah.
We don't have to think from,
Toward the river.
yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting area. It's definitely got hills and mountains, but it's also got a lot of historic farmland. It's not being farmed anymore. Much.
Are you talking about the east side, I mean, the west side?
Yeah, you know, they're off
That's
of
listed
Duford,
in
Duford,
R10.
Lakeshore, all that.
I just think it's a little difficult for us to go ahead and approve what we've done, referring to the map when we don't have a clear picture of the 5 and 10 acre on the west side.
So you brought up the overlay of the slope on the west side. Can we kind of get a rough idea of what we want to be the 10s on that area? Would that give us something to work with, or do we need to get into something more specific than just slope in those 10
Yeah,
areas?
let's bring up the slope map over there.
I'm going to defer to you guys because I do not know the west side.
It's crowded.
Yeah.
Problem is you're not gonna be able to see through both maps. You're gonna see slopes. Roughly see where the roads are.
Yeah.
I thought we kind of had a handle on that. I think they remember that we had 5 and 10s that we discussed around that side.
Who's running the map?
No,
There's playing areas.
This map shows some 10s on it here that I have over by the river.
Well, I know that we had them at one.
So. Just gotta figure out where.
Pretty slow.
Yeah, drag that screen.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not only that it's sloped, it's also that it's, state and commercial timber and forest service, right?
What's private there? Yeah.
Stimson. If there's some.
So this is dark green, and that's this is the dark green. Okay. So and then this color.
See, there's a lot of
So where were you talking about? Were you talking about over on this side?
Yes, right there. Yep.
Yeah.
That's what we're struggling with.
So these are all 20s. There's some 10s right there. There's some 10s on the borders of that. Drops all down to 5s around here.
Right, which, that's why I feel like the slope is gonna play a role into getting to where we wanna be, because as I'm looking at the current zoning map, it follows what all that dark pink is doing.
Yeah, there's a lot of.
Except for that one little spot here. Why is,
We're talking about.
what is this one zoned R5?
Yeah, that one is R5 for some reason.
Why would that be?
Oh. Well, maybe because that's the flattest flat spot. Just past Round Lake. Yeah. Just past Round Lake State Park. Yeah. And around Lodge Basin Road.
It says that's Ridge Valley Road there.
Yeah.
Anything
Never
already
saw
chopped
space.
down.
It is,
No,
east of Plattsburgh.
It does.
Yo.
Feel comfortable doing like we did over here on the other side, just in that heavy slope area, just make that blue.
Yeah.
10 acre. And then, once again, say that we understand, because of the complexity of the land and everything else, that we really can't, give you a 100%. These are the areas that should be 10 acre. And then have the 5 acre mixed in, and just do it the way we did it, in a general way, and refer to the map.
Yes.
Because I
Block like this off, block like that off.
right,
And that northern piece,
yeah.
maybe a little bit in there. I don't,
Yeah.
I know that's all timber, that's Missouri
And
River
there's a
itself.
bunch.
Yeah.
I know, in some of that bed too.
State, some of this in Missouri River.
So on the proposed map, that top right-hand corner, dark blue is light blue, and then all that is light blue, and then all this is light blue. That's what I'm kind of struggling with because of the slope and leading up to that timber coming down. Yeah, see that? Yeah. There's just none over there. And that's going up the mountain.
I don't know how we could word it so that it's, we know it should be 10 acre, but we know that there's 5 acres.
So if we kind of locked off, the areas that still.
Well, I
look
don't, are
that
there
aren't
fines in
split,
some of those areas that we're talking about?
Yeah.
There are.
Yeah.
That's what the light blue is there.
Well, but
But
if
when
you look on
at
the
when you
map,
look at- when you look at the slope map, the slope map is most definitely 10 acre based in the slopes.
right, but this, if you look at this map here that has some fives in it, I don't think there's any 5 acre plots in it. It doesn't look like it to me.
Where you at?
She's
I'm
on the non-functioning computers.
Oh,
on this map,
okay, and where you living?
see, this is, I think this is our space in front of it here. And then, there's, obviously, that's not my, I can't tell them, can you use any of those look like 5s? Maybe that one,
It's not set in stone, we don't have to.
this is,
I would,
odd space.
it'll be interesting what other folks around that area think.
Yeah.
When
I don't know where Ridge Valley Road is. I don't know.
Yeah, that's just.
Well, remember, I usually talk about
Yeah,
From Irish Road.
the half mile they asked you to Sagle water to her. And then I said, man, I drew that big map out and I said, that's a lot of property.
it's
And we cut it down to a
smaller,
quarter acre.
Right.
It's still a lot. That's a
But,
lot.
there's, I don't know what this is. That one.
Yeah.
This is just.
That's
me
down-
saying,
that's
and
all
that
along
probably has smaller than.
Well, basically, where Spade Road comes down and hits that dark
Yeah,
green.
we
Came right down to the highway where it currently is. And then now it's
And then there
gone
are
way south
how
of the
5 acres.
railroad tracks,
So
you know.
this,
Yeah, I think
is 5.
And then this is Forest River.
Yes,
Forest River space.
Okay, then, but
Which it
this
does
little
now,
thing right
There's
here.
some through water, so I go that direction.
But all it's gotta do is touch,
Um,
all
It
it's
looks
gotta do
like
is
everything
touch
but
that particular
possibly
property
like these two.
within a quarter mile of where their service area is. That's why that map looks the way
I
it
don't
does.
know about that. I don't think those are 10s, but they're.
So,
more than 5.
That one's
And
gonna be
I don't know
interesting.
what these are. This might be a 5.
these might be fives.
These,
Might, trying to see. The,
Person here, that's the kind of what's going.
yeah, counties.
Oh,
Well,
it's
yeah,
the
Bonner
attorney.
County.
Can you get to the ownership?
That's why I was wondering if there's a
a little. It's got the difference. See, there's
I don't know where- this is the best I can do.
Oh, there, try to get that one.
What?
Okay, no, that's not that one. Maybe there's a layer.
I don't know where it would
Because
be.
it's.
Right, yeah.
This is the internal.
Is it
Yes.
under
Well, there you go.
zoning here?
Current zoning, okay, so it shows, shoots so that, show that you guys. So you can click on one of those. There you
So
go.
what you guys discussed, is that consistent with the slopes?
Is that such- All
Yep.
of this is ruled by the.
So if we were to, if we were to
And
just draw a
that's
blanket
not what
map
I think applies.
based
And
on the
I-
slopes, we're gonna get pretty close.
That's zoning, right.
But for
10
some
acres
reason,
should
this
be-
is, no, this is
Yeah,
our
based
time
Ownership.
What's already divided up
here. I
in the
don't,
smaller.
I'm not
smaller
familiar with this
divides.
at all. It's
Which piece is yours?
This is.
They're
I haven't
outside
really
of-
got there.
It's like a
Right.
overdose.
But-
College.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Just viewing what
How
Zell
it's
there,
there.
all those smaller pieces have been
I
done
don't, I probably don't have
outside of
access.
this.
to
And everything else is still
Master plan was.
larger parcels. Again, that's not very
I was checking to see.
We're gonna go crazy. Developers
coming in.
There's
Land
one.
grabs going on.
I'm trying to come
I
up
don't
with
know,
a
I
way
put zoning in there, so I could
at
catch.
least
No,
so that
it's
people understand.
Land rush.
Oh, no, they're not. It
So
wouldn't-
what?
it wouldn't be
More
very
than
well.
X percent of the parcel
Sorry, I'm
sits
involved
within.
in this, so-
Part of our job. I don't think it's not regional.
I would just, I draw a 10 acre.
I don't know.
And then put a caveat in there. Is
Zoning,
that
planning.
it will recognize, because of the complexity of the layout, that there will be some things that
Now,
Right now, I'm
Maybe.
just finding my own.
there's-
fall into
That'll
the
show you.
5 acres. This is why I say we need to write something, the 10 acre.
I'm
to
sorry.
that
More
language.
language. Sell more language.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I thought we were gonna get that.
A lot of it has to be an overlay on electric. So between this and electric.
But all of them are down there.
Oh, yeah.
Probably.
You know, and water. So, you know, we have to do the basement,
Trying to,
sewage, water, and so electric. So that's how you
Yeah,
sell.
like I said before, you know, when you have to go back and just see.
Overlay with, where the electric service is. Anyway, yeah. Game plans from two companies. It's already, you know, off grid, you know, picking indications where developing land that has no chance of getting electric.
There's a lot of that around.
There is, but there's gonna be more, so I'm trying to get a handle on. So that's finding. See zoning
and that's what
restrictions coming up
that's
for
a,
that.
that's an R10.
Be more, yeah, solar or.
But that's what I'm saying, this should be R10.
Power units. Is there
It
any talk
doesn't,
about?
so when
so what
all
is
of
it?
this is.
So, as one argument.
Yeah, we haven't really talked at all about any power
Right.
companies.
No, that really hasn't been.
That's it. That was my question.
Yeah.
So I think that,
From the
Small
continuity
space to go.
we look
We
at
could-
having different roads, service levels.
Right, and then
I think
that's a
we
problem
find it
too.
changes.
It doesn't apply, because it just goes down to public works, and the next question was.
Why should there be,
Like particular properties on the private way should be well maintained.
force the,
Provide wants to get a higher level of service, you know, how do you designate it? You know,
Yeah.
County road as opposed to a private road.
Yeah, county's not looking to.
Say that level of roads.
I understand that, isn't that?
Going back and reading a lot of what we wrote
You know, They're not gonna take people on
final
the roads
things
that
about preserving the
all
fall
land, that one side.
all of those things. Yeah, I personally think that that justifies changing things that originally provided in that.
Again,
Road maintenance agreement, because we have a lot of property.
you know, it's in good quality life.
And the road, we got a bunch of 5 acre pieces.
Yes.
Where's the road beach?
if it's something
There's no
that
road.
Yeah,
We're gonna stand up in front of a judge and jury.
Yeah, no.
Road
Yeah,
is-
I know what a cold breeze is.
Yeah.
Well, again, it's always good as the people. It's in the deed, it's in the documents, too. You know, it doesn't mean that.
And I did that just before I came. I was reading what we
You know,
got.
the only guys that are still following, guys who are still following, gotta get to work.
That's right, that's.
really define that pretty well, I think. You know, what it
Quality
is,
of life.
yeah, what it is we're trying.
Yeah,
to
it's in that preamble to the.
Right.
to the word.
So, I mean, we've got like 2 meetings after this one. We could be here banging our heads against the wall.
Well, this is what I'm suggesting. First off, we need to have something that's somewhat definitive in that they need to know what our thoughts are. Okay, so what I think we ought to do is go by slope and have the county
You
will
bet, thank you.
put that blue shade in by slope and for 10 acre, and we'll come up with some words now that better describe what it is we envision for the 10 acre, and then go by the map. With the words, map, shows our intent. You know, people know that, you know, this is what we're interested in doing. And just put a caveat in there saying because of the complexity of the land, you know, it was very difficult for us to draw an exact area that are strictly 10 acres. Let planning commission do that.
Boy, I feel like that leaves the door wide open. I don't know,
Well, the problem is if we go in with no description
right?
and no opinion, then that is.
Yeah,
why
no, I get it. Milton, were you just doing some wonderful editing up there? I gotta read through this.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Currently established adoption of this.
So does that work? I mean, is that a plan that there are course that we can go on? Because we should have faith in Jeanette's corrections, what we found and what we've already written. I think we're gonna spend some time doing that. I really would prefer not to do that so much. Would prefer to get a better definition or to present people with a better idea of where we're thinking, what we're thinking.
Well, you know, there are, well, some of the things that we were just talking about, these areas out here in the middle of the R10s that are R5s. I don't know why we couldn't do section lines for those sections, just saying everything. I mean, there are like 3 of them that we could say everything west of section whatever it is. I don't know how to get to that on this map. Shall be R10s to the river or something. It already, they're in the middle of R10. I wish you guys.
I don't think that's the correct language though, because you're segregating a parcel. You know, when you're picking, you know, this piece from here to there is that. To me, that's not the correct language to be using.
We did actually talk about that when we started this whole R5, R10 thing, of naming sections that should be R5 and R10. But I don't actually agree with that anywhere, but I see these 3 sections here that are listed as R5s. And they're right smack in the middle of a huge area of R10s. And it makes no sense to me why those are R5s. And that was just good.
And because we don't have the benefit of seeing what you're looking at.
Yeah, why, no, I wish.
Okay, but I don't think we
Yeah,
need to get that hung up
Doug's
on the
got
map,
it.
because when they laid out the map to begin with, it was kind of followed section lines, and we have little spots here and little spots there. I don't have a problem with following section lines a little bit, but it's still gonna be variant on slope. So if we tie that in and we make our, whether it's lines on section lines or half lines or whatever, let's just put something on the map and then define it with slope and road density and things like that. Let's get on with this thing.
Yeah, I agree. And it's not gonna be perfect,
Yeah,
but we've got 3 more meetings. And we really kind of need to at least let folks know what we're thinking. And if we base it on slope, we always keep going back to slope. If we base it on slope, just
So did all the principles,
yeah,
because it was.
So the
definitely
question-
One of the things that was up.
right.
The
So
question I have about that though is if you base it on slope and there's some R10s in an area that's not consistent with that, does that leave it open to change those R5?
So that's where, because that line says generally over 30%. That leaves it open. So then you have to put a qualifier on that. So I was thinking in that area that is surrounded by 10s, still 5, put some note in the file, we're concerned about this area. It seems to be discordant. It needs to be looked at more carefully. to
that's
see
what I
if
was
it should
saying.
Was that area you were showing me off of Newport Road?
Yeah, all pilot space.
It's Irish Road is down, is
To the south,
on the west side of
Irish to the south.
that, is
Oh, right.
part
Yes,
of
to
the
the
section
west.
line. I'm guessing. And so it's east of, there's 2 sections in a row, north to south, and 1 section to the east that are along Irish Road.
And what size acreages are they now?
There are some 5s in there, but most of them are bigger than 5s.
5 to 10, and then there's a bigger.
But it's R5.
So
And
Milt,
it's in the middle of a
Yeah,
can we get a map of the west side that's based in slope with all sorts of dark blue squares?
Yeah, go to the current one.
so this one with,
See, that doesn't have any slope, but it's not any different than the ones next to it.
Is that the current map that we have right now?
yeah, this is the map of the area, correct?
Well, it's not loaded yet, is it?
Yeah.
It is loaded?
That should be the same one.
There you go,
Layers
thanks.
turn it on. Yeah. Flash back and forth between.
Yeah, so I'll go back and forth every 10 seconds.
Do you see?
So,
what those
here's what Jeanette's
Yeah, where's she at? She's
talking
down
about. Well, she's
Right
talking
here.
about this.
Yeah.
all sheet.
That's
Well,
30
right,
seconds.
upside down.
there. So right now, that's called, what's it?
5.
And
Okay, Milton, real quick, turn the slow back on.
yeah, see,
And
it's
so is
flat.
that why?
That's why, because it's flat.
So then my next question is why is that dark blue?
Well, if you took that color off, then you'd see lots of purple, because it's sloped. You see it along the creeks, but that didn't color up. But if you took the dark blue off, you'd see lots and lots of purple.
Do you think this has anything to do with ag at all?
Oh, wait a minute, no, that's there, look at it now.
It's farmland
That's-
now.
That's along the slough,
Oh,
and all that flat stuff, that right down there where you swing down.
Yeah.
You're on that bench up above the slough,
yeah,
so that's where the old farms are, that's why it's left.
that's where the old farms are, but. Okay, but there's just not as much slope, but there's still enough to
Yeah.
make it tense. Is that kind of what you're?
I guess so. I guess so, but have to, because
Yeah,
slope
this
is,
is actually pretty steep here, going up this steep view and up from Jewel Lake. And then this
oh,
is-
up Jewel Lake, think of it, yeah.
Yeah, this is Jewel Lake Road right here.
Right.
You're going uphill this whole
Right.
thing.
That's why,
So,
but all that area around the slough, north and south of the slough is pretty flat, it's all historic farming. Grow lots of.
which has an impact of it being tense, you're saying?
Yeah.
Or can.
Oh, so can we agree on that? Let's do,
Let's put slope in there and historic farmland under 10, under the description.
yeah, that's 20. Farmland's 20. Based on what we have already, based on what we wrote here.
No, I like that.
What do you think people are howling about 10 acres?
It's all 10.
I know we were trying to get away from slope, but I just think that's the right way to do it.
Well,
I do
well,
feel
that's-
like
that's why it's-
what we want.
That's why I said just draw big blue things and just say, these are 10 acres. And if somebody's on a flat, 20 acre and comes to the county and says, look, this is troubling,
Yeah,
and that's, we make provision for that in our explanation of why we did it. Right.
Because that's why Milton has like zone changes.
Rich Valley.
Because those 10 acres out there on that flat ground, it's changed to 5s right now.
Yeah.
Because there's no slopes up in there.
Right.
So if you guys are kind of in there.
My concern is, if we're to look at, here, so this is currently comp plan,
I'm just giving a consensus.
what's it currently zone?
no, for the,
Probably its own.
Five. So we need to do that fives.
well, let's have Milton turn it on.
Yeah, see what the zoning is. If you turn on that zoning.
Yep, that's zoning.
That's that, what we held.
So what is it? Light key. What's the key? I'm calling light blue, right?
Yeah, it must be good with all this.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, this is all 5s. And then this is our 10.
So it's interesting, because here's flat farmland. This is the forest, so there's no slope. There's nothing there.
All that agriculture, we just took it out of 5 acre.
Right, that was, that's
Question was 3 sections. Why are they?
Certainly limits the number of people.
Because up there in the hilly parts.
Yeah.
But then down here in the flat.
Yeah. and that was why I was asking if that has something to do with that,
There's some slope or
farmland
right over some
or
5 acre parcels.
whatever
in
you
that-
call that.
in those 3 sections.
Well, this is where we get in trouble is we start doing what you're doing and then go through and look at each one, because if we do, that we can make
This blue all makes sense.
20 feet down this road is 30 feet to the north is this, and we have to do 800-mile long.
Well, the thing is, that if we just said everything
Every time you drive through the.
west of Irish Road shall be 10 acres,
Old farm.
we're good.
But I think that's.
This is all still-
We're trying to get away from.
Well, see, if we use slope, it's already 5 acres to slope.
Yeah, right.
Eight. No, I
Yeah,
understand.
so this is all
whole
still
area is a
farm.
5.
Years
Yeah.
old.
And
Yeah,
if
in
you're
fact,
gonna go slope right
they
to
just
the
turned up those two.
Yeah.
I'll show
they just-
you, let's see what this is.
Yeah, they just turned all that up.
That's 5 acres.
Like
exactly.
2 years
So
ago,
now
yeah.
we know that everything that size is 5 acres. So here's one right up
So-
here, and it all is slope.
Well, I think Don put his finger on it. That is, these guys are gonna rewrite it. Supervisor,
But I have a feeling now.
I want to say council. Commissioners are gonna put stuff into it. You're gonna have people interpreting this 6 ways to Sunday. What we need to do is just let them know what we'd like to do, because we're past the point where we can specifically delineate. There's another 2 years.
Here, see this, I don't know how this little is because of the colors, but this is a little 5 acre parcel right here. in the middle. That's 3 acres. That's a 3 acre parcel right there.
That's all right. I live on a 1 acre parcel in the middle of a 10 acre area. So I mean,
Yeah, I don't. This should
what's
be.
already
Oh,
done is
This-
done. What we're.
This must be some water stuff there.
Yeah.
Fingers down.
Yeah. I love it. It's like 1 acre. Put my house in. You know what I mean? It is happy.
Gonna take this off.
I'm now at the point where if I were to sell all big, I'd make one money off of that house in California was, I was embarrassed. This one is.
So
Off the charts.
we have used up an hour of our time.
I know.
What's the decision?
That's just, I keep trying to get people to.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. We need to make a decision here. The committee is coming back with their recommendation for how to do this.
Well, I like that. I think that paragraph is, that Milton had up there was really close to
The
what.
10 acre, I did not see it. So Milton redid the 10 acre.
Well, he just added a little bit.
Okay.
Milton, would you mind going back to that?
Heat went off at 5.
Yeah, I'll put that back up.
So it goes on and off. all day.
Okay.
Well, I tell you, it might not come back on. There's a road around.
And or historic farmland.
Well, and we need to add another sentence that talks about that as it goes out towards Lake Ponderay, because the slopes kind of settle down out there a little bit.
Should it say this area instead of this R?
Sure, that works for me.
You know, can I buy an A?
We need to.
This does make for this.
So let's try and blend that into what we already have. Sagle Residential 10 is the second ban of low density development following Sagle Rural 5. Does that sound good and accurate?
Yeah.
In order to create and maintain land use designations that provide for a range of residential opportunities within the Sagle area, residential density should be greater near means of concentration of commercial and public services and employment opportunities and lessen as development occurs further from the I-5 corridor. Let's scratch that. From the, I'm sorry, highway. That's an old age thing, you forget where you are.
Well, physically it is further from that back corridor.
Well, yeah, that's a given though. And what I'm trying to do is incorporate what Milton said here. I think that gives us a much better. So is that okay with everyone? We'll
Yeah.
scratch that sentence?
Oh, scratch that sentence.
Yeah.
We've used that sentence in, gosh,
In every designation?
pretty much talk about the Highway 95 corridor and everything.
This designation covers the area furthest from Highway 95. That's the next sentence. That's pretty straightforward. Rural Sagle Rural Residential 10 encompasses the Goldville area.
Eastward out the lake, but it says not saying anything about Missouri Mountain, going west.
Yeah, I'm not so sure I'd do that. What I'd be inclined to say is start trying to get what Milton has in the.
Well, that, if we strike that, it doesn't make sense. Sagle Rural Residential is the second ban of low density development following Sagle Rural 5. This designation covers the area farthest from Highway 95, but it doesn't because we've got 20s. We've got forest 20s, both east and west. So that doesn't really make a ton of
This
sense to me.
designation covers the area.
It could say something like it's generally farthest from Highway 95.
This
I
is
mean,
the
it doesn't
last
have to-
residential area. This is the furthest residential area. Why don't we say
I like that word.
this designation covers the area, generally covers the rural area, covers the residential. This designation covers the residential area generally furthest from highway.
Why would it have to be residential?
Because that's what we're defining. Sagle residential.
Well, then why don't we don't have to put that word back in there, because I was just looking at the map, because I can figure out, you can figure out who owns what and what it is. And there's a bunch of those areas that are like tree farms and stuff like that. I don't know if anybody lives on that. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But it's not, once you get to tens, they're not necessarily residential anymore. They obviously can be because people buy them for that. But I'm not sure that they're all residential.
Do we have to worry whether they're all residential? What we're
No,
trying to
you
do
just leave
No,
title.
what we're
I
trying
leave it in the title.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think we need that repeated. It just covers the area that's generally farthest from Highway 95. And then we had say, we name it again, Sagle Rural Residential encompasses blah, blah, blah. And it could say, on the next line, probably should say, Gold Hill area eastward to the shores of Lake Pend Oreille and westward to the Pend Oreille River.
You know, actually, that furthest from Highway 95 is a good transition. Minimum lot sizes of 10 acres, the minimum access requirements are primitive and maybe this generally has slopes greater than, and then go in and define the general areas that they are. Can we do that?
It could, we might not want to use Gold Hill as the westward. We might want to say Gold Hill eastward to the shores of Lake Pend Oreille and westward to the Pend Oreille River from Highway 95.
I get leery about doing that because I want to refer to the map. Instead of trying to define it geographically, verbally, let's go to the map, let the map define it. What we're doing
It's
is,
shown on the map, yep.
well, what we're doing is we're just trying to show why this is 10 acres and the 5 was 5 acres. And if you want to see where they are, go to the map. Well, I'm Jeanette. If you got another 2 years, we'll try and work our way through it.
This has been we all thought recreation was going to be our hard one. This is good. We have spent more time on this section than the other section.
That's what scares me about the agricultural forest. But does that work? I mean, okay.
I have a question, maybe I'm wordsmithing, but the final sentence there says areas to be excluded from this. Why is that the only section in here that's in the future tense? Could it just say areas excluded from this land use designation are? Because all the other ones don't say rural 10 is going to be.
Sagle, I'm not saying.
He just took out the to be crossed it out.
Okay.
Puts it in the same tense as everything else. But this is
Now,
a statement, not a wish.
Yeah. Yep, I like that.
Well, do we want to encompass this Gold Hill area eastward out to the shores of and westward of the Pender as designated on the land use map. Areas excluded from this land use are any public state and recreational currently established at the adoption of this. I like number 4 though, if we can include that this area should be used to create a buffer between Sagle 5, because that gives you it gives you a reason for its existence as well as slope as well as basically a place to stick that sentence in. Or something
Number
like
4,
number 4, yeah.
I don't mind just waiting at it.
Well, I'd like to have our description of 10, you know, in a flowing format like 5 is, like all the rest of them are instead of. So when you read it, it flows.
Was the numbers, that's something that Milton just put up?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
those, I think those.
Because those are coming across to me, they're coming across as goals.
Yeah.
You know, more six,
Or standards, yeah.
yeah. So those could be stated as, could those be stated as goals under?
Yeah, but we didn't do it on any of the
I know,
other.
yeah.
That's, I just for the sake of continuity is.
You know, I think what you're talking about, though, is the first 2 paragraphs under Sagle Rural Residential 5 are just about Sagle Rural Residential, period. They're not about
Right.
5.
Right.
And the only way we could approve that it would be to make another heading, which I don't really think is necessarily necessary. But it is, all of this is about the whole rural residential area. It's not about 5.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is all
No,
it's about 5.
I know. I kind of see that as being, we went from residential to rural, right?
From resort
Well,
to
from
residential.
resort
Rural.
to rural residential.
Yeah.
Now, we define rural residential, then we explain 5s, and then we explain 10s. So that 2 paragraphs up there is referring to both 5 and 10, not just 5.
So just call it Sagle Rural Residential and then do another title for 5 and one for 10.
Could do that.
Because the ones that are specific to 5s and 10s are not very, they just give the basics.
And that's why we said refer to that.
Yeah.
Because if we try and go into minute details about what constitutes how we did that, we'll be here for another 2.5 years.
Well, and you guys can, read through this at your leisure while you're sitting next to the fire later tonight. And make some wordsmithing notes, if you will. And then take a picture of it and send it to me tomorrow or the next day or the next day.
Actual,
So I, Brad, reading over what you had was talking about. Top 2 paragraphs under Sagle Rule 5. We could just Sagle Rural Residential 5 and 10s, have those 2 paragraphs, and going through the Sagle Rural Residential 5 in the 3rd paragraph, Sagle Rural 5. West, east, there's language that still has to be finished in that paragraph. And then what we're working on here on the residential 10, taking some of the repetitive language out of it.
That makes more sense if you put, say up at the top, rural residential 5 and 10.
Yeah, I agree. The
That
first
works.
2 paragraphs under 5 covers both fives and tens.
Right,
So the main header, if you will, Sagle rural residential 5 and 10s.
yeah, that
There's
makes
these
sense.
two paragraphs and then definitive language under Sagle 5 and Sagle 10.
That works.
Is an
That would
idea.
work better than making 3 headings. Yeah. I think. That works.
Yeah,
That's
and I mean, like I say, there's language that we still have to complete in the third paragraph of 5. And then we were working on the 10, taking out some of the repetitive language and inserting the 4 items. You guys have anything to put on there? Good. Right over there.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around everything.
I wish these computers worked so we could pull up where we're at status quo. And then pull up the proposed map.
Yeah.
It's very frustrating.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I like to see where we're at now versus kind of those when we look at overlays.
What's he working with?
but I guess what I'm trying to capture is that if we put a subheader up here that says single rural residential, and then we do a header and then a subheader of, R5 and R10, I mean, you're basically creating the land use designation and zoning. And so I was thinking that maybe the 5 should, that it should try to capture more of the types of uses, right? Maybe the 5, because we're doing less slope, lower slope, that it's used as agricultural. And then the 10s, because has the slope in it, that it relates to forest. And maybe these just need to be changed to something different. But I'm just afraid that they're too close if you put a heading over it and then create 2 subheadings. Because if you're going to do that, you might as well just create the subheading of rural residential and let it be 5s and 10s, and then use these numbers to differentiate when it should be 5 acres and when it should be 10. So, yeah, that might be better. So let me make a note to rearrange that. No. Yeah. I like that better. All right, let me rearrange that later and then send that out to you tomorrow. We ought to finish up with talking about forest. And are you guys ready to move on, or do you want to talk about that somewhere? What do you think?
Maybe we should, yeah, like you said, like you put a spin on it, and then we'll look over the 5s and 10s, because that's what we're struggling with. The forest, that should be pretty cut and dry, but what do you guys want to do?
Okay.
Go talk about 5 or 10s more, or see if we,
I think let
Go ahead.
Bill and wordsmith it, fire us off, so we're struggling on it.
We are.
We're back and forth. We all expressed different input to it, and I think we've got a grasp of what we're talking about. And I think we should be able that part of the discussion tonight can be part.
I would just add, I would add reference to the maps. One thing I would make sure that we include in the description of 510.
Well, what,
The maps are important. That gives
Right.
somebody sure, gives some reference.
all I think we need to do is right above where we talked about what was fives, just start the new paragraph with rural residential 5, and then that's that paragraph, just even underneath the rural residential 5/10. Then when you get down to 10, do the same thing. Just do rural residential 10, and there's stuff that we already have in there. So, and then that way it's not 3 separate headings. I think that was a really good idea.
Work for you, Milton?
Yeah.
Any way that comes out is fine with me. I like the way it's headed now.
Okay.
Whatever the nuances to it are, I agree. I don't have a problem. But we do need to include the map.
But that whole blue part, maybe should just go underneath. the next
Milton, can you go
paragraph.
down to the 10s under the bullet points, the 1, 2, 3, 4?
Yeah.
On number 3, do you guys,
Yeah. What should it be?
I feel like when it says these areas generally have slopes, do we want to remove that generally word? Or and tighten things up, or what do you guys think on that word?
Well,
Or
when we
these
were-
areas have slopes greater than
When we were
30%?
looking at that
Generally,
slope
means
map
vague.
for those 30% in the
Oh.
blue,
Hang on, what?
I don't know what those,
I mean, to me, generally applies vague.
what are the light pinks?
It's subjective.
That's just a little bit less slope.
Less than
Yeah.
30%.
Yeah.
So this is generally down in here? Is that what you're talking about?
Some of those don't have.
If you say 30%.
Or is this generally, right? Is that generally over here?
There are other criteria.
But the other side
That's-
doesn't.
It's just, okay, that's in general. You may have a piece of property that's got a flat corner and the rest of it's hilly. Well, this warrants being 5 acres because it's not 30%. So if it's so tight, and one of the things we've all struggled with the zone changes is, and comp plan amendments, is that you get the anomaly. You get the piece that doesn't fit the hard criteria. So I can't, but it's surrounded by the other criteria. Does it make sense that it would be that it would be allowed to be different from all that surrounds it?
Yeah, see, like this guy right here, if he came in and asked for a rezone or a comp plan change to rural residential from ag, see, that what's there? So, sorry, Don, go ahead.
As I was saying before, it implies that higher level of services are going to be provided. in that
Who
area.
is that?
Hey, that's mine.
And it might not be something that the service providers are capable of doing, just because of that one, where the different level is provided for all the others, because it's a lower density.
So are you in favor of keeping the word generally?
I think it helps, because there's the whole exercise to get additional criteria beyond the school, right? To say, here's the distinction between 5 and 10.
If we say slope, that's definitive.
That's it, and that's what it's been in the past, pretty much, well, I don't have 30% slope, because I think the language now says 30% of the final grade. It's hard. And that's caused problems for some of the request, because we can't, there's no justification at all. Oh, I mean, 29% slope, That kind of stuff. And again, there's a lot of those parcels that, well, I got a hill over there, but I'm flat over here. What do I do?
Mhm.
So it's gotta be additional. It's awful hard to land something with one single criteria that can be busted so easy.
Okay, so I only see reference to the map on the 10. Could we include that on the 5 too, please?
Oh, my.
Okay, there it is.
So I got a question for you. You got a 10-acre chunk of property, half of it is 30% or greater slope and half is not. The guy wants to cut it into 5s. You give him the go ahead. He's got a 5 that is fine. It's under 30% slope, but we just turned the piece of property into 5s that has greater than 30%. So you went up against the comp plan.
Yeah, so I mean, those are the problems. How do you deal with it?
Right.
Should it be something? Should it be so hard?
Can
It
you
just
put-
keeps coming back to this, and we struggle with this at the commission. It comes back to what appears to be a consistency. Why should an area be broken up? It's the same argument as spot zone. Guy can justify this to be a little commercial lot. Well, it doesn't seem to fit. The reason why, because again, the service providers, well, now they have to gear up because that's now a commercial zone with 30 people working there and chemicals. So they got to gear up for that. Are they ready to gear up for that? All the way across the board, all the services that are provided, it's supposed to be pretty uniform throughout an area, so that there's not, they don't, when they're out there fighting a fire, something, they don't run into something they're expecting. Sorry, because it's supposed to be all that's there.
And the way we wrote up the stuff previous to that and defining what it is we were protecting, that gives an awful lot of, if a guy wanted to turn his 10-acre into 2 5, and the one is straight up and down, well, he's not going to be able to do anything with it, and it could easily be denied on well, look, this isn't consistent with maintaining the rural character and a neighborhood. I mean, it doesn't fit. And granted, you've got 2 lots now, but you've got one that is nobody can do anything there, and it's not consistent with what it was originally.
And I don't know, well, these things are, it is all subjective, Joe's saying, but some of these things, I think we're just gonna have to test it, see where it goes. And if it sways the whole picture, all right, then we can pick it up again, make some further adjustments. Because these are the very struggles, no matter what sub area it is. We talked about this in Sagle, they talked about it in Priest River Open. Very same thing.
So does everyone feel comfortable with what we've got up there?
Yeah. Okay. Look at forest.
I think we already did Sagle.
Well, let's look at it again.
We did Sagle for us last.
There is one thing that I wanted to bring up. I noticed it. The other subgroup presented the other night. And I raised my hand, but I was called upon. One of them had, in one of their zoning specifically had one resident, and one just ADU. I know we're not addressing on our 5s and 10s. I think we need to have in there one primary residence and one accessory dwelling on the 5s and 10s. Yeah, I don't know how long ago. Yeah, and granted, that's gonna be the, the committees, and it seems like, I don't know yet that all the committees are gonna go that way to recommend that. But it is in conflict with the code now, so we'll have to deal with it. But again, so the committee is saying, this is our recommendation. We think it should be this way, but, and that's what the question, I think Brian asked the question during their presentation. Do you have in your writing a justification for going only to 1 unit and 1 AD? Right.
Isn't that the code now is one?
Well, it's
One and one.
one plus the RVs, the permanent RVs. So you could have as many, I think there's 4 dwelling units.
Potentially, I think there's 1 primary, 1 ADU, 2, either 2 tiny homes or.
Yeah, 2, RV, permanent RV. So anyway, but that's what
That
it's
just
so
changed. They
again,
just passed that last year.
yes. So anything like that, here's the reason why. Here's the tax and services, septic on a lot,
Well, yeah, I mean,
et cetera, et cetera.
But still has to pass family health district. So
Right, but it's just, if the evidence is there that they have that many bedrooms, you've got to have it sized properly. It may not work in certain areas. Again, and that was the question back to the Southwest Committee was justification to say that only 1 permanent dwelling.
And we address it in Sagle neighborhood, we address it in.
And I gotta right, okay, you guys are doing great. What, 2 more meetings?
3.
3 more meetings?
No more so than us.
Hang in there. Keep flying, keep flying.
Okay, on the Sagle Forest, in reading what it was we wrote, we really put a lot of time and energy into the agriculture. And now we've just eliminated it for the most part. I'm kind of thinking we might, in the Sagle Forest, we might say Sagle Forest / agriculture and just do 2 sentences or something.
We agreed to that last time, to keep the ag forest land use as is.
Except for we've developed the map to indicate that all of this 20-acre designation is on steep slopes or state or forest lands. And so if we're going to add agriculture to it first, I would ask the question, is there pastoral farmland? And 2, are there any active farm or ranch operations that are showing that we're trying to preserve? Because you're talking about creating 20-acre minimums down on flat land, because typically farms don't go on the sides of mountains, which this is 30% slope. So I think that was one of the reasons we separated it, and then determined that maybe we didn't have these.
yeah, I can't really see turning anything in the 20s.
Okay.
Well, I'm just,
No, I was just a little bit concerned with how much time and energy.
well, I know it. I mean, as I was reading through that, I went, talked about that a lot. But then, like, I go back to thinking about everything along Algoma Road, Sagle Road, Weaver Road. Nobody's doing that and making a living like Woods are.
Yep.
And the McNalls. It's just not happening in Sagle anymore.
Yep. Yeah, you know what? We actually kind of covered that too, though, as a smaller business. You know, if you want to have a fruit orchard on your 5 acres and sell it, that's fine.
Yeah, or like what we do, we sell a little bit of hay in the summertime to pay for taxes or what, I think we put wording in there to support that.
Okay.
We have
So
tree
then-
farms too.
So then, Sagle agriculture just died officially.
Well, I mean, it sucks, but I mean, there's nothing real, like, again, there's nothing really zoned ag right now. So what would we want to?
I think that's why we agreed to just leave it the way it is.
Yeah.
Just leave it the way it's written up in the plan already. You know, there's no reason to mess with it.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've done Sagle Forest. Anybody have any
I think
changes?
we're
So let me
good.
reread it one more time.
So what's after last year was always done?
Well,
Go back and review the document and do the edits. Make sure that the document says the things you want it to say.
all right.
Milton, I'd really like to continue to have one primary residence plus one ADU. And the R5 and R10 as well as the Sagle Forest.
So you actually want to put that in there? Okay.
Myself, we used to have it in there. I thought.
We talked about that before. If you're not careful, you're gonna have 4 separate residents on a 5 or a 10 or a 20. If you allow the main house, the second house, and 2 trailers, you're gonna have 4 residences. But we're trying to keep it down to 1 resident.
But I mean, that's what the county commissioners have right now, right, Milton?
Yep. And even though that some of these areas have been just saying one dwelling unit and 1 accessory dwelling unit, I think that the county would still allow 2 RV dwelling units because it's not calling it out specific. And again, I don't know how that would all process through go through the process. Would it, would the board take it out because they were so adamant to put it in? They spent a lot of time talking about RVs and tiny homes, and so.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Milton, where we're making a comprehensive plan map. Let's say something's zoned for 5s right now, or even 10s right now. And even if our comp plan said only 1 residence, that comp plan, until something triggers that comp plan change, the way it's zoned and the way status quo is for primary residence, ADU to tiny homes or motorhomes, they can still do that, even if our comp plan says doesn't address it. Is that right?
Yeah, so yeah, if somebody turned in an application that triggered a comp plan review, we would put these standards in as conditions. And so say somebody came into an R5 area and put in a subdivision, it would trigger a comp plan review, and we would put in the conditions that it has to meet these standards.
Have you had any direction from the commissioners what they're thinking about? Are they going to continue with the primary residence and ADU? And have they sounded like they might go back on that? Or are they going to?
No. I did ask them the other day if we could increase the size of the ADU, and that was the end of that meeting. So they're pretty adamant about where we are right now.
We are.
900 square feet, because I remember 2-3 years ago, we were talking about going 1,800 square feet.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. Right now, it's
That's bigger than my house.
2-bedroom, 1 bath, and 2-bedroom, 1 bath, 900 square feet.
Yep.
And then the tiny homes are 420 square feet. Is that right?
900 square feet.
Oh, on the tiny homes as well.
Yep. So you can have 3 900 square foot units on your property with a single family home.
I mean, when did that ordinance pass? And we haven't been overran by requests for that at all. So.
Yeah, it's passed. It's been over a year, and we're not being overrun at all. So we're just barely processing our first RV park application, and it's only for 5 RV spots. So we did just get another one in out in Garfield Bay for 11 RV spots. So yeah, two RV applications since we adopted that ordinance. I would have expected a lot more.
Okay, do we want to start the review of our previously accomplished documents? I don't have a hard copy of it.
Yeah, she sent
Of the
one,
big plan.
Yeah,
she sent one on the 29th.
right. I have a digital copy, but I have not printed it out.
Well, what, I think we need to have the land use stuff added in here too, because it's not there. But I made a bunch of notes when I went through here. I didn't have time, I could reformat the whole thing, but I didn't have time to do that. And that's why I have little comments like move this heading to the next page.
Yeah, and we still have to do all that cleanup.
Yeah,
so-
there's a lot of that stuff they're gonna do.
Yeah, yeah, I was just looking through your email, yeah, we'll do that.
Because there were really, the only things that were problematic for me were that we had Sagle School in like 2 places. And I thought, we need to put them, get it all in one instead of in 2 different chapters. And then
There were
was
little
a
chapters though,
um,
because there is a school
bunch
It's a
of
chapter.
transportation element, and then there's,
I just put the chapter numbers that they were in. I wrote the page numbers down, but there were, and a couple pages, on page 15, there were 2 questions at the bottom of the page. And I was like, how come we didn't address those?
One of the
we
things
need
we
to?
tabled probably.
Yeah, I have no idea if we
Of
needed to address
components, the
those.
mandatory components.
And then, yeah, we have, there were a couple of kind of weird things that one that said that incorporates multiple zip codes, and I think we decided right from the get-go that we only wanted 83860,
Yeah.
period. And so that needs to be fixed. And then there was one with multiple school districts. I could figure that out because I think that we gave that piece away down the Jupiter Road. Remember, there was a piece that belonged to somebody else. I want to say
oh, and that
Blanchard
went into Priest River, I
Priest
think.
River, and we decided to just let them have it. So that, but that's the only place that would have been a school district. Okay. So we need to make those are pretty easy corrections. But we had on page 36 and page 29, we have the same paragraph.
So we only have 15,
About the
about
one.
10 minutes now.
Yeah.
So do you guys want to maybe just start with that? Or next time?
I'd rather go home early.
Well, I don't have a hard copy.
We need to get,
No, that's what I mean. Next time, start with that next time. Yeah.
as long as we can get land use added, it doesn't have to be a whole new document put in there, but you can just, because this just says the next page is gonna be land use.
Well, yeah, so probably what the plan will be is Milton will wordsmith all that.
Yeah.
And he'll add it to your draft, and then we can just start working through your guys' draft.
We
Yeah.
probably should just review land use first thing and make sure it actually says what we all feel like right now it says.
But
And
if
then
you
go to
guys-
the whole thing.
But once he sends it, if you guys have suggestions, send those back so that,
Before next meeting.
yes. That way we can get through that quickly and start reviewing your document.
And we want the most up-to-date accurate maps. of what we- Because that's important. We need to-
I did have something that I brought it up when we were dealing with that chapter about employment. We have these 2 heat maps, whatever they're called. I wrote it down in there. They're the heat maps of where people work. They are so outdated. I don't think we need them. The latest one is from 2014, and a big round blue dot is down where, what's his face, had his thing, and he had a lot of employees. Well, that's gone. And they had a whole bunch of people down at Mirror Lake and.
Probably
There haven't
wouldn't,
been any people down at Mirror Lake.
probably wouldn't hurt to add a note from the group at the end, saying that we recognize that some of the statistics in here probably were not the most current available.
Well, you know, it's been 5 years, don't you think we can get something from Department of Employment? I don't get that.
If we have 2 more years to go,
I don't think so.
I don't think.
It's that data is relevant.
Yeah.
Somebody
it-
called them, I think it was Dave. Dave called them. I tried calling them, but nobody called me back.
I mean, if you live in the Sagle area, which you know what it is. And you know how many cars are parked there and how many people go in and out. So I don't myself.
You don't think we need the state to tell us about?
Well, the state of employment did, I don't know how they do it, with drones or something, they did a heat map of how many people were there, and they made it, expanded it by how big the little blue spot was. And there are a lot of places along Highway 95 that would have, a lot of them show a lot of employees, and they
Well,
did
that's-
back then.
Right, but that's not relevant to where we're going right now. We've already established our commercial corridor, where that's at, and then where we're gonna subdivide going out from that. So I don't care what the state of Iowa says, how many people work somewhere. We know where our commercial is at and how far out it is.
And
That's
we can,
basically my point, that those heat maps are so outdated, let's just take them out.
and we
We
can
don't need them.
get away with that just simply, well, you need something that is what it is, we've said at the report, but all we have to do is simply look at the report and say, look, we recognize that some of the data that we worked with wasn't the most current.
I just think there's no need for it at all, especially because this is a big,
Well, I
this
think our,
chapter
I
is
think our,
really
yeah,
long.
I think our population numbers are way off.
I mean,
The
to me,
census
there's
data
no
should
point
be,
for it.
should be new stuff coming up because of the redistricting coming up here this next year. Using that data.
Yeah.
So
I think I think that there's a lot of stuff about wages and job count.
we're all going
and that's
15 hours a
outdated
year.
Too, but this is really outdated. I mean, that thing is like so. outdated.
It's an embarrassment. Was when we put
And we
it
can just drop that page if you don't, it's not necessary.
pretty sure of the number. Anyone who want to make a motion that we adjourn?
Can I make sure that we're gonna get land use? And then that-
Yes.
No, I think so.
Okay,
I don't like a motion.
Anyone second it?
Doug Garrett, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I didn't think.
cold out there.
No,
It doesn't take very long.
Yeah.
House is down to 58 degrees.
A great